okay, great, well, I think we can match you on that. We can send 5 kids as well. And then they go through, they fill out their application. And for these scholarship students, these outbound ambassadors, there's an interview process. And the interview is huge for us. The interview is almost always a group interview if we can do it. It's a great time. It's one of the favorite, best, whatever part of my job is sitting down because you have 5 kids in a room and they feed off of each other and you have fun, wacky questions. You know, 16, 17-year-old kids. You know, if life was a salad bar, what vegetable would you be? You know, we have some serious questions too, but it's so fun to watch the kids. And obviously, it's a group program, and we want diverse groups, and that's how we do it. Now, the advantage to that for enrollment is that we have this army of pre-screening that goes on. We have all these mentoring organizations that are vetting these students for us. So it's not just a wide open, everyone apply if you can, but we've established a great rapport with some of these organizations. They say, hey, I've got 20 great kids, we want to send 5 of them, instead of 500 kids applying, and I mean, my goodness, the staffing you would need to whittle down to those 5 great kids who can afford to do it. So that's the huge advantage for us with the Outbound Ambassador program. It's something that's relatively new. The directors of the experiment today, John Mislin and Anthony Allen, when they came in a little over 15 years ago, we had 10 Outbound Ambassadors. Today we have over 400.
So those two directors go around and cultivate these relationships with these organizations that refer the students to you. So that's great.
Can you talk more about that? What kind of organizations do these two directors usually kind of find? What are the characteristics of
It's broad. There are about 82 different mentoring organizations. So sometimes that it's just a school, I shouldn't say mentoring. Sometimes it's just a school that has extra funding for scholarship students from their school. Sometimes it's an after-school mentoring organization like Minds Matter, which is a great organization where they take kids, really bright kids from struggling sections of the city. They bring them to like the financial district in Chicago and New York, and those kids do like a 4-hour-a-week internship with some financial wizard. So that's what Minds Matter does. But there's 82 of them, all kinds of different ones. 7 tomorrow, and tomorrow. It's a long list.
So do you feed off of each other, for example, in the recruitment process where you have this high school cadre, and then now when they become sophomores at another school, do you kind of go back into that pool and get them out?
So like right now I've just done a poll from our experiment alums all born in 1992, 93, because they're the perfect age now to study abroad with us. So I do a query out of the database, give me all the alums that still want to be contacted by us. You know, that's why you have a good database. So if somebody, I don't want to, solicit somebody that had a bad experience in the experiment for whatever reason. So we'll do a pull out of the database and we'll send them a letter saying continue the next segment of your, if you had a great time with the experiment, well, S.I.T. Study Abroad is built on the same principles, and mission, vision, and values that your experiment program held, and this would be the next step. And the graduate school does the same thing, so they're doing the same thing from our study abroad alums. So we send about, the experiment is sending 800 students a summer. We're sending about 2,200 students a year.
And that's why we're very careful with our do not contact list. After every summer, we have a very limited few, but that are do not contact these people. They had a bad experience, or they're just
or they got kicked off the program.
Yeah, or they're a big
not that they had a bad experience, we had a bad experience.
Yeah.
How competitive is it? I mean, what is the acceptance rate basically from us? What is the
I mean, because the students come pre-screened by their schools, a lot of their schools are super hands-on, and our job is to make sure that the schools know that when a student walks into their study abroad office and goes, I want to study abroad, that they know what the right type of student is for S.I.T. before the student even starts working on an application. Because while I believe personally that everybody should study abroad, I don't think everyone should study on an S.I.T. program. There's plenty of programs out there that if you have never been out of the country and all you really need to sort of for that first trip is to go somewhere in Western Europe or English speaking, because that's your comfort zone and it's going to push you enough, that's great. I'm glad there are programs out there for those students. For S.I.T, we're probably looking for students who are, interested in field-based learning, that are looking for, in a lot of cases, non-traditional locations or, a really challenging, problem or question to wrap their head around, and are going to really get into what we can offer. So our acceptance rate is about, I think last time I looked, we probably accept maybe like 94% of the applications that we get, and then end up yielding like 84% of those students actually end up going in our programs, because so many schools are so hands-on. So yeah, the student we reject probably is from the school that has like a study abroad office where you're the only person there, and you can't meet with every student, and they'll find our brochure, look us up online, and send us something without really knowing what they're getting themselves into, and we'll be like, we're a mission-driven organization, but if you're looking to convert your homestay family to Christianity, and we're not that kind of mission. Which was an example of like a student. Or, if you have a 1.9 GPA and you offer no explanation about why you have such a low GPA because, maybe you had a brain tumor removed your freshman year and you couldn't withdraw from all your courses, or you went through a family crisis or a personal crisis, like I said, we're a holistic review, so we may not reject a student based solely on not meeting one of our admissions criteria, but if you, don't meet several of our admissions requirements, we will reject you as well. And some schools will send us, they have really high touch processes on campus and will still send us applications where we're like, why? What was your rationale for letting the student through your own process? Because part of so the admissions office we're asking them not just to apply to our program, but then we ask for a piece called the approval of participation, where the school signs off on their approval for the student to do off-campus study and may disclose disciplinary probations that the student has had in the past, or academic probations, and we'll ask for supporting documents. And then when we admit a student, we send them back our confirmation materials, which are documents that student accounts needs about who to bill and how we're going to get your financial aid, when's it going to be sent to us, who's it going to be sent by, and then we're going to send a bunch of forms for student affairs about like our indemnification agreements, meaning like if a student ever said, I didn't know that I was going to get kicked off the program for going hang gliding, we can say, well, remember that form you signed back? Yeah, that said that you couldn't do that. So we sort of collect all the pieces that we need from student accounts, medical review, and from student affairs around liability, make them sign all that stuff, get it back from the student, and then make sure it lives in those offices when they move into those stages.
This is an interesting point, because we were talking about it before you guys came in. So it's your office that has that agreement that they can't go hang gliding. Can they rent a car?
Well, student affairs writes that, student affairs in conjunction with legal rights, like we have our the indemnification agreement, the conditions of participation. They write it, we make sure it's signed, and we have to know what's on it.
So can students go hang gliding?
No, they can't. There's certain, some programs we actually have a motorbike. They're not supposed to ride motorcycles on any program, but in Vietnam and what's the other one that we have? We have motorbike waiver policies where they actually say you will be riding motorcycles, but because you have to, it's like the only form of transportation. But
you have to wear a helmet.
But if anything happens to you, you can't do world learning for that. Like hang gliding, scuba diving, motorcycle riding, bungee jumping. We had a bunch of students one year and not only leave the program, but leave the country and go bungee jumping on Victoria Falls. You're just like, and they all said that they were on their ISP. They're like, oh, we're doing our research project, and then they didn't check in they missed a couple of check-ins with their advisors, and they contacted the AD and said, I haven't heard from these students, and I'm like, where are they? We can't find them, and they'd all left the country, crossed the border, and gone bungee jumping. And then what do? There's all sorts of things going on. Not just for violating your policies, but then you have their credit trend. If you're going to expel them, you have to work with their home schools, their registrar's office, and figure out how much credit are you going to give them, and are you going to give them any credit? Are you going to give them no credit? how much refund, what's your refund policy, and you, depending on how big your organization is, you may be a small organization, you may all go into, are you all thinking about going to study abroad as a field, or, so you may end up going to work for a small provider where there's 10 of you in the office and you have to do all this stuff, or you may go work for a big organization like S.I.T. or CIEE or IES where you're going to be supported by somebody else whose job it is all the time to just worry about risk management. And depending on what your office is, you may just need to work with them to understand and distribute and communicate, or you might be in the position of, oh, wow, I actually have to draft this policy, and then who's going to look at it for me? And that's when your network of colleagues that you meet here is going to be really important. You'll be like, hey, can you take a look at this? Or do you have a copy? Can I borrow yours? I heard you saying about
In Miami.
in Miami, we have a form that if we're going to let them do something like that, they have to sign off the program.
They have to sign up the program.
And so we have a form that Student Affairs has developed where if an academic director says, I have a student who has an aunt who's visiting in the next country over, and she wants to go visit, and it's not going to be disruptive to my program schedule, because again, these are field-based programs, so they're busy all the time. It's not like they have vacation, but they really need to go because they're going to die, and it's or they need to return home to apply for some scholarship next year. Like they get some prestigious award, and they have to interview for it, so they need to leave for a week to go back and do that.
Right.
We have them sign off the program so that if anything happens to them, we can say, well, they weren't our responsibility because the student waived, their ability to, if they get sexually assaulted or, are robbed or something like that, that, they already said that it wasn't up to us to be supervising them during that time.
And obviously we didn't have that form for a variety of reasons, but we were also stuck in the airport, and we didn't know until we got to the airport, like maybe 2 or 3 days before we got rebooked onto the flight back to Boston.
Yeah.
So we did what you suggested, call parents.
That's a great way, and totally.
So Ryan, your job must be exponentially more complicated because you're working with minors.
I wouldn't phrase it that way, but much more interesting sometimes just because of the things we struggle with, the safety issues we have. I mean, anytime you're putting a 15-year-old girl in a rural homestay in northern China, everyone just kind of, it's one of the safest places to go, but God, if something happens, not because of the country or the people, but the location, the remoteness of it, like, God, if something happens out there, everyone just holds their breath. And so this year when we had a homestay, father crawled into bed with his 15-year-old host daughter. It was a very difficult situation. And we could talk about the idiosyncratic things that pop up every year, but the one thing we had to deal with every year consistently several times is alcohol. Of course, we've got young kids, and for the experiment, our policy is very straightforward. We tell all our group leaders if it's culturally relevant. Obviously, in France, you can have a small glass of wine with dinner. I led to Germany. I always insisted that my students try German beer. I'd split a beer, with 4 students or something like that. Something very controlled. But we are pretty flexible. So we don't. We do say zero tolerance, but that's not. It's not quite zero tolerance because it's not so black and white. Sometimes it's hard to find out what actually happened, what went on, what the student do. Is the student gone too far? With all these scholarship students, the worst thing in the world is that you have some very wealthy, rich kids that are in the programs that have probably cut corners and done some bad stuff before, and they influence this poor scholarship kid, who's from difficult inner city situations, never been had the opportunity, the luxuries to do some of the things that these rather wealthier students do, and all these students get together, 3 or 4 of them, and they get caught. And full-pay students are cocky. They've done it a million times. They know exactly how to handle themselves. They're very smart, very experienced. They deny. And this poor scholarship kid who's just a goody two-shoes, who's never had opportunities. I mean, they get caught in their face. The blood rushes out of their face, and they almost faint. I mean, they're scared to death, but a really good kid. So when you think about a zero tolerance in that context, I mean, you want to throw that kid down, the scholarship kid who, we remember 16 was not that long ago. Easily influenced. So what we do is we have a behavior contract, and we sit down, the leader sits down with the kid, and it's very straightforward. What happened? What did you do wrong? How did it happen? After that, if the kid's caught drinking, it's no question you're out of the program. We send you home. But there is some flexibility there, and it's a sticky issue for parents. Needless to say, talking about drinking, but other issues with kids. I think the homestay is very difficult. I wonder how many more years we can continue to put 15-year-old kids in homestays in other countries. A lot of people would say that those days are numbered, which would be really sad. But it's high risk.
I used to walk to school when I was in third grade, and now I don't know if I'd let my kid walk to school. I don't know. It's definitely a cultural shift, I think, in our American society. But I used to work with one of your competitors, Where There Be Dragons.
Oh, yeah.
And we went to one part of China where they're famous for Turpan, where they grow grapes there. And so the kids were all excited. They're 15 and 16 years old. They want to bring a bottle of wine home for their parents because their parents have big wine collections. I can't do that. As soon as you get in the U.S. with a bottle of wine, I'm really in trouble. So, the intention was good. I don't think they were going to go pop it and drink it, but you have to be careful about things like that.
That's why when I came back with my group from Germany, before we were going to the airport, I said, if you take any alcohol out of this country and you're underage, there are going to be serious consequences at customs. So sure enough, as we were getting ready to go through security, I hear 3 or 4 bottles of alcohol. I said, Ryan, you give this back to us when we get to the States. Oh yeah, I'll give it back. As soon as we get to the other side, it's all yours. So I came back from Germany with some free booze.
Your rumplements, right?
Yes.
What are your timelines? How often do you go?
So it's July and August. All the programs start. So it's basically a 3-day window where all the kids are taking off all over the country. And so we have 3, 4, and 5-week programs. So at the end of July, 3 weeks, all those 3-week programs come home. 4-week programs come home. 5 weeks come home, and we're done by August. Or first week in August, we're done for the year. Just get ready for next year.
400 kids? Oh, 800 kids?
800 kids, yeah.
Annually?
Yep.
Pretty good. What's the affiliation with the office in D.C.? Do you guys work with them too, or?
No, I mean, our closest connections with the office in DC would be there's sometimes we overlap in our connection to our sending institutions because there's the 2 programs in DC that we have USAID contracts for bringing funding students from Southeast Asia and also from the Western Hemisphere, like Latin America, and placing them on U.S. college campuses. I forget what the program is called. I can see the web page for them right now. But anyway, so there's 2 programs and 2 projects in DC that are funded by USAID that we administer out of DC. Where if you're a small campus, that wants to internationalize, you want to bring foreign students, but you have really no resources. You have no plan to do international student recruiting, or you have no study abroad office that's trying to sign agreements with foreign students to do exchanges. You can contact, IDP in DC and say, we would love to host some of your students from these USAID funded programs. And those offices will make you fill out an application, and they'll get, I'm going to make this up, but 100 funded students, fully funded students by this program, and based on the applications they get from U.S. colleges, will place them on these college campuses. And usually it's a great way because then the students themselves, the school gets a student from Burma. They've never had the students on their campus, gets to interact with that person. The student hopefully builds a relationship with the campus community, and then maybe a linkage will happen between, we'll kickstart internationalization on the campus based on those efforts. So that's something that the DC office is doing, and it's important for our university relations to know, which schools they're working with, because we're also working with a lot of schools. But we don't work super closely with the DC office other than for those kinds of projects. Certainly, we like to tell our alums what the DC office is doing and what the kinds of programs we're doing in the grad school, because we think that, if you did your ISP on education access in rural mining villages, in northern Bolivia, then we really want, and we have some project that's doing that in DC, I think that we like if you're looking to go back to your, I really want to go back to this country, we want to tell our alums, like, we have a project that we're, working on, and maybe they're looking for, maybe so now since you graduated, could get involved and be a part of that. So.
Because there's a group of Turkish students here at the beginning of the semester.
The youth programs, or
I don't think I thought it was a youth program, but the person that was in charge of it works in DC. So I was confused on if it's.
So any foreign, in bringing students to the U.S. would all come out of the youth programs, like IDP, whether that person has an office here in Brattleboro or in D.C. Like any program that's bringing international students to the U.S. is probably funded out of World Learning for International Development and Exchange programs. So. Yeah. Though, like Simon Norton, who is based here in Brattleboro for the youth program director, is employed by IDEP. So even though he's here in Brattleboro, his bosses are in DC. He's not on this campus.
Ray, they might be helpful next year too if you do this to have Simon or Phoebe in youth programs to participate in this.
Okay.
Then they're really moving forward.
Because that's the other side.
Right. Right. Okay. Good. Kim was gonna come, but her kid was sick, so she couldn't make it. You had a question?
This might be for both of you. I was just wondering, how do you find your contacts in the other countries to help lead the program or organize it? How do you vet people from the countries?
So for us, our academic deans, we're usually looking for people with PhDs and lots of experience in their field. So like either they not only have been a college professor, on a U.S. campus or in a foreign university for a long time, but then also maybe consulted on projects for the UN, on educational policy or international development, or were leaders themselves in movements or experts in their field. So we rely on when an opening. So let's say you got our dean for Africa is. Or for North Africa and the Middle East, he's actually based in Rabat right now. So if an opening comes up for an AD in his region, he's going to not only post something, in the Chronicle of Higher Education and higheredjobs.com maybe and on the World Learning website, but he's going to be tapping into we really want people who are host country nationals. They need to be experts in their field, looking to work with American youth on this topic. So if we're looking for an academic director for a program on climate change, we want somebody who's an expert in that field, who's going to have a lot of network to offer the students.
If you don't have any contacts yet in a country, like if you're looking to go into a completely new area, do you just how do you do on-the-ground research and find these people?
The World Learning Network is vast
Okay.
and wonderful. So the newest, if we were going to start two of the newer programs that we've started that actually failed and didn't really get off the ground, Cuba and Egypt. We tried to roll out a program in Egypt just as Arab Spring was happening and never got it off the ground. And we had a program in Cuba that was really close to running. We actually had the academic director hired, and then our relationship with our partnering institution in Cuba was severed by the Cuban government because of World Learning. Because we have USAID, we have too much government funding for their liking. So. But in those cases, academic directors, you put a call out through not only the World Learning Networks of who our USAID partners working with, but who our academic directors know, because again, they don't just have these jobs for being, they used to teach in the modern European, languages program at some university. They've also have their own networks, and so they're going to be looking into finding those people. It'd be worthwhile to have an academic director visit. Or if you'd like any kind of introduction, Tina Mangieri is the academic dean for Sub-Saharan Africa. She's in Bliss House. All the academic directors are actually going to be moving back to Vermont in the next year, so they're going to be in Bliss House, but right now we have one So if you'd like to ask that question directly to Tina.
So they're coming back for...
They're all going to be based here. It's a strategic decision for the institution to have our academic leadership study abroad based here.
And so then they go back to the host country for the rest of the year then, so...
We're not talking academic directors, we're talking deans.
Oh, okay.
So the bosses of all the faculty that lead our programs will be here at Meadowbrook. But they're the ones hiring the ADs, and they report to them. So our academic departments are a dean, 2 associate deans, and they live in the regions and can travel easier if they need to get to Ecuador and then Peru the next day and then be in Brazil later that week to support the faculty in those countries. They're more able to move around. But we also need the deans here because what we're asking a lot of our students is to give up a semester at the prestigious liberal arts campus to spend a semester with us, and how do we tell them that the experience that they're going to get is better than a semester at Harvard or a semester at McAllister? Not just because we're going to introduce you to a new culture and you're going to live it and experience it, but that the kinds of topics and people that we can introduce are better than the world-class faculty that you're paying lots of money to engage with. So, and the deans are really important for that, to be able to go and you have a lot of you may have known, you have recruiters that go out and table at study abroad fairs, but they have no entrance into, the history or anthropology departments on college campuses. They're not academics themselves. And so going and saying, you know what, our program in Mongolia is perfect for the geology department on your campus. A 23-year-old recruiter doesn't have the same access, and authority to say that our curriculum works, curriculum integration is big for study abroad programs. You need to know how your credits are going to work with the home campus, and the deans are really crucial. So having them on campus is important to us. So if you'd like to talk to Tina Mangieri about that, I'd be happy to introduce you. I'm giving you all my card, but if any of you wants, I've seen you in the...
Yeah, just started last week.
Okay. Who are you working for?
Peggy.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I have Mina and Asia Pacific.
Nice.
Yeah.
So.
And I started out wanting to work for Tina, but I had another gentleman who beat me to that job because I'm originally from Southern Africa. I was interested to do Tina.
Where?
Zimbabwe.
Okay.
So I was interested to do Tina because I was familiar with the territory. I ended up with Asia Pacific and Mina.
Well, it's still great. It's a great. There's a lot of resources there anyway. You'll meet everybody in the department, and for all of you, we need to do. I would say that S.I.T. Study Abroad is open to you as graduate students whenever you want to, pick our brains. I'm more than happy to introduce you. And one of the great things about being here on campus is you have access to people doing this work all the time. So.
We're doing this is another class, practitioner inquiry with international education, and we were kind of asking the brothers, can we go up and talk to them?
Yes. Yes. And the best being here is the highlight for me and of being here on campus this time of year.
Are you guys located up on that hill?
Yeah, the house right up there, this house. And just email me or come by and say hi whenever. Or just give me a line.
Do you guys want to describe your program
I'm in the
a little bit
basement,
just to get
the
some
garden level.
ideas?
Oh, that's so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody
I
was
want
wondering.
to say hi.
Huh?
Are you also downstairs?
No, we're actually here in the graduate building.
Oh.
So just halfway up the hill to this is where we're at.
Do you have a current program in Fiji?
No, our program in Fiji hasn't run since 2010.
But you have
We had one, yeah.
What happened? Because the program that they're designing is the Fiji program.
Low enrollment, consistently low enrollment. We have a program in Samoa, and we really tried to go after Pacific Island studies, and it was hard to, there's so few departments that really focus on that. Our program in Samoa, they do a week orientation in Hawaii before they go over, and we do get a lot of Pacific Island study students. We get a lot of students who just our program in Samoa is just culture and development, so they really just see a very broad focusing program, and I think that we also have a program in Indonesia, and so those programs competed against Fiji. And we just weren't able to sustain it. So S.I.T study abroad. The only thing I see in admissions is I provide the stats on this is what enrollment has been like for the last, you know, 8 semesters, and it's consistently been low, and we spend a lot of time recruiting for students when we could be recruiting 20 students somewhere else. So that's my input, and then of course student evaluations are looked at. If you'd like to see any student evaluations of the program, I could see if I could get you access to those.
Do you remember what work you were doing?
Like what the curriculum was based on?
We can totally get you syllabi if you'd like to see it, and evaluations. Just come see me. We'll have to dig for it because it's like 4 years now. So if the files and things are online, that'll be like on our server. It'll be better. But if we have to like go into like the storage unit to go find stuff.
We would help them.
But not too many people are around. But between myself and Robin Bitters, who does all the program evaluations, at the end of the semester, we could probably find you some stuff.
So Ryan, or both of you actually, but Ryan, start with you. I mean, what are the trends that you're noticing in terms of the experiment or young people wanting to travel abroad? Anything significant that's moving in a direction? Or?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we're not starting new programs in new places. We're closing programs in places. This year we will shut down our UK film program, our program in New Zealand, program in France, and a couple others. So
Is it enrollment or is it cost?
historical enrollment, yeah, it's just down and down and down. Polling, and it's tough. I mean, as you're looking for a program, you're going to have to do the Mitt Romney thing and find the demand for that program. As Mitt Romney does, he finds that niche in the market, and then he fills that void and rebrands himself. So if you're looking at programs, that's something that has to be done as well. But it's tough because you hate to. We're closing our Poland program this year, which is just historically low enrollment, but it's an amazing program. At the same time, there's a struggle there because we have programs that aren't that great, but there's continually high enrollment because it offers a formal language training component, and that's what parents want because that's how parents think kids are going to learn to speak a foreign languages, go into a classroom in another country. So it's difficult to struggle. I mean, the trends are people looking for more credit, people looking for something, parents looking for something that is more legitimate in their eyes, that has more of a focus on curriculum, and that's what S.I.T does, and that's awesome. But as Eric was kind of talking about earlier, the students they're looking for are the kids who are at the advanced level, the kids who've already been out of the country. They're looking for kids who did an experiment program. And so at that 15, 16-year-old level, that's what we want. We want cultural immersion, we want exposure. We don't want curriculum. That will come later when the kids are ready for it at the college level. But more and more parents are, they view some of our programs, I think, as flighty because there's not a curriculum tied to the program. So that seems to be a trend. And if we're going to, it's an interesting demand. Do we want to supply that? I mean, is that really the right thing to do for a 16-year-old kid who's never been out of the country before, to plug them into a course in another country? I'm not sure. But
so there's no talk of AP credits for anything like that?
There's talk. Yeah.
So they don't get credit? Is that what you're saying?
Not for the high school kids, not for high school kids.
Wow.
Just out of curiosity, what was the France program that got closed?
The Bicycling in Brittany program is actually merged with the alpine hiking program that we had, which is kind of neat. We have closed the painting in Provence program, and it may come back, and it is an example of one that we're kind of satisfying the demand for formal training, for formal language training. And I think it's going to be the art of language and the language of art. So it's still going to be an art-based program in France, but it's going to have that language training component as well.
And Eric, trends?
Public health. We can't build public health programs fast enough. I would say, if the new Obamacare stays in place and we're going to have more people accessing health care and not enough professionals in here to meet the demand of people coming who are going to be looking for services. That means college kids right now are thinking, how am I going to make money? I should go into public health, I should go into healthcare, and therefore they want study abroad experiences in healthcare. So we have public health programs in every continent, and we built them really well, and there's a lot of demand. So I don't think we want to only focus on public health programs right now, but it's certainly a critical global issue that is servicing the institution well in terms of enrollment numbers. We're looking at trends right now is the recession has trended to cheaper programs. So, we saw universities protect their assets by sending less students abroad to keep more funds on campus. And enrollment numbers went down, not only because students didn't want to do the expense of studying abroad, they wanted to stay home and work and did not buy plane ticket and keep their work-study jobs. But we saw universities say we want shorter-term faculty-led programs because they're cheaper and we can run them ourselves. And so one of our initiatives has been to install a dean for customized programs, Lauren Clark, she's here on campus, and looking at not selling ourselves as just the travel provider, we'll do all the logistics for you, but saying you want to do faculty-led programs, use the World Learning S.I.T network for those programs. So we'll do the program, your faculty can come sort of as the the academic supervisor of the program, and it'll be we'll tailor it around your needs using our network and our lecturers. They don't get to use their own services, it's you're coming to use our network and work with our academics on those topics. So faculty-led has been something that we're trying to position ourselves to be flexible and use our platform for. And then we're building out programs, and we have 2 new comparative programs, one on climate change and another on human rights. So they're going to look at those issues, global comparatives, so they'll visit 5 different countries during the semester. And we're looking at STEM programs in the summer. So how do we, if you're in nursing and engineering or math, you probably don't, your curriculum on campus is so structured that you don't have time to study abroad because you just can't you can't, unless you want to do a 5-year plan or a 6-year plan, you're not going to study abroad. So how do we engage with those students? And we're looking at more summer programs. We have a program in Iceland on renewable resources that attracts a lot of engineers. We're doing a program in geology in Nepal that we're launching for the summer that we're really excited about. We sort of focus rather than closing programs, we want to refocus, use the existing platform that we have there. And so we have a program in Mongolia that the title was Nomadic Cultures and Globalization, but what we're really looking at when we look at nomadic cultures is what is a lot of the mining industry that's being developed in Ulaanbaatar and in Mongolia doing to the nomadic cultures. So we've renamed it to geopolitics and the environment, and they're looking at how the increase in Chinese foreign investment for mining is reshaping nomadic cultures. And so we make adjustments based on what we're hearing from college campuses, what we're seeing, and indicators and what economic indicators, and how we see what are the needs. If you talk to a junior now, what do you think you're going to study? Well, they're probably going to study what they're hearing they're going to get paid well to do. And so how can we be ready with programs that's going to meet their needs?
I would add, too, an industry trend that falls between both of us. I was at the last IECA conference, and gap year was the buzz. It was a buzz. Everyone was talking about gap years. There were presentations and studies and everything about gap years. Gap years can be this, that, the other for those kids in between. So.
And we actually we had a gap year program with Princeton, and Weatherby Dragons had one too, Princeton as well. They had ADO. And then we do mid-year program now for Brandeis University. So Brandeis will say, we can't offer you a September start, we can offer you a January start. And if you don't know what you're going to do the fall, you wait to come to campus in the spring. We have 2 programs, one in France and Spain, run by S.I.T. That's what we take what we call mid-year students. So they start mid-year, and that's another track.
We should do a midlife year too.
If I could ask Ryan, your situation is a little different because you don't have an academic team of students or start a program in a new country, how would you find the people in the country if you didn't have like university relations?
Sure. As you probably know, the experiment was founded in 1932, and in subsequent years, experiment offices have popped up all over the world. So there's an EIL Federation. So I've had the privilege of visiting the experiment office in Turkey and in Germany and in Italy. So we have those offices everywhere, and that's our primary source. We work with them, and of course they have been there for 50 years themselves, and they have great contacts, and we kind of branch out from there. Our director, John Maislin, lives in France 6 months out of the year. So as far as Europe goes, he's our primary source for building new programs. But it's also, we had a program in Tanzania several years ago that wasn't a dog, but it just wasn't a very good program, and it was scrapped. And so 2 years ago, we started another program in Tanzania, and ended up being partners that we had worked with earlier, and then also Andy Cunningham, former group leader for the experiment, and a pretty well-known guy who spent lots of time in Tanzania. We actually sent him over there and used his contacts and our contacts, and that's how the program in Tanzania came to be again.
Yeah, if you're starting fresh, it's hard because not only do you have to like go and court somebody, like, hey, I saw your name in the paper, like, and you're this shining star person in this field, and I want to do a program around exactly what you're doing, but then you have to train them on how to work with students. And that's a lot, that can always be the challenge, like, because if they've never been in a U.S. higher education environment, you have to bring them up to speed. And
they might not do a service learning means even.
Yeah, you have to have a great onboarding program, because, we find sometimes that, like, they're experts in their fields and their networks are amazing, but then they freak out because they don't understand why so many students are medicated in this country. And they are just like, please don't send me students on medication. And you're like, what 19-year-old in the U.S. isn't on some sort of dangerous drug? And so then you need a really good student affairs program to when you hire them, like getting them onboarded and resourced and up to speed about the challenges they're going to face is hard.
So it probably does help if you have a contact institution or any place like the university that you would have.
Yeah, and if you're doing a semester program, how are you going to get them a visa? We have the issue of Brazil, World Learning is a registered entity in Brazil called World Learning Go Brazil, and they sponsor all of our students for cultural visas. Whereas in Western China and Yunnan province, where we have a program on traditional Chinese medicine, they're being sponsored by a hospital. So we don't get them student visas because we're not working with a university there, but we get them, again, a cultural visa. But in Switzerland, we are registered as a school with the Ministry of Education, so we sponsor our own student visas in Switzerland. Other places, we do tourist visas because the relationship between the U.S. government and that country's immigration is that you don't need any visa, you can just get a tourist visa. So you have to think about how you're going to stay. If you're going to be there longer than 90 days, and because most tourist visas are only good for 90 days, if you're going to be there longer than 90 days, who's going to sponsor you to be there, and how are you going to get that letter, and how much are you going to pay for it?
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. It was really, really nice.
Yeah,